Testing. Okay, here we go. Good morning, Chicopee.
Good morning.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Koss. Thank you, members of the council. Thank you, veterans organizations. Most importantly, thank you, Gold Star families, for being here today, for sharing this day with me. So, Memorial Day. It's observed on the last Monday of May, and it's meant to honor the men and women who died serving in the U.S. military. Memorial Day is the one day each year set aside to remember those that President Abraham Lincoln said gave their last full measure of devotion. Their last full measure of devotion. For the country, for their families, for their brothers and sisters in arms. They fell in the waters of the Pacific Ocean and on the bloody beaches of Normandy. They fell in rice paddies of Vietnam and the icy slopes of Korea. They fell in the streets of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan. They fell here in America, and they fell for liberty worldwide. Since the earliest days of American history, when our nation's only armed forces were the militia, those Minutemen who volunteered to defend their country, their newly formed country, these men and women swore to keep our nation free, to uphold the ideas of safety, security, liberty, and justice for all. These men and women formed what was the beginning of the National Guard. In that time, the National Guard has undergone dramatic changes. However, the same type of men and women comprise our force today. A force made of our neighbors, our moms, our dads, our husbands, our wives, our brothers, and our sisters. A force spanning 54 states and territories. A force that now serves seamlessly with our active duty and our Air Force partners, and shares many of the same expectations or experiences. And just as our National Guard has changed over the years, so too has Memorial Day. Originally known as Decoration Day, it immediately followed the conclusion of the Civil War and aimed to honor those that fell during the Civil War. On this day, this first Decoration Day, General James Garfield made a speech at the Arlington National Cemetery, and 5,000 volunteers decorated the graves of 20,000 Union soldiers, Union and Confederate soldiers, with flowers. 5,000 volunteers, 20,000 graves they decorated, Union and Confederate. That same day, many northern states followed suit. Unfortunately, at the time, many southern states continued the tradition of honoring their dead on a separate day, but they did honor. It wasn't until World War I, upon recognizing that our nation was embroiled in another major conflict, that northern and southern states chose to honor those that made the ultimate sacrifice in all wars in service to our country. Now, I'll be honest, my intention is not to stand here and give you a history lesson. No, I wanted to set the stage. I wanted to remind everyone what today is. My brothers, my sisters have fallen. They fell for me. They fell for you, our brothers and sisters. Sometimes I think we lose sight of what's important, what we have, how blessed we truly are. Soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors, from all walks of life, when I see another day in this beautiful land, they've given all they have, all they can, for you and I. During this day, I want you to take a moment and reflect. I want you to think about your Gold Star neighbor. I want you to think about the soldiers lost from the National Guard Armory in your town, from the Marine Corps Reserve Armory in your town, from the Air Force Base in your town. Take a moment and think about those soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors. And once you've done that, do something. I challenge you, do something. I don't know of any service members that wanted to be honored on Memorial Day, that sought this. I don't. Yet I do know of plenty of service members that wanted to make a difference. They wanted their lives to mean something. They wanted to better their communities and their country. So, do something. Have a barbecue. Have some beer. Spend times with friends and family. Once all that's done, though, do something. Do something. Do something that lets those that we honor today be honored every day. And the actions that we take to make our community, our country, our neighborhoods better. Volunteer. You don't need to serve in the military. However, if you do, 181 Infantry in Worcester is ready to take you. You can donate. You can recycle. Just do something to make our community and our country better. Do something that shows that we are all in this together, that we're human beings. Care for other people. We aren't in this alone. We're together. Do something. It's a pretty simple concept that will honor those that made the ultimate sacrifice in our country for their families, for their brothers, for their sisters in arms, for you. President John F. Kennedy said, "A nation reveals itself not by the people it produces, but by those it remembers." Do something. Remember Gunnery Sergeant John S. Fredette. Remember Sergeant Stephen B. Lariviere. Remember Captain John W. Maloney. Remember Staff Sergeant Daniel A. Newsom. Remember Sergeant Christopher M. Wilson. Remember First Sergeant Kevin A. DuPont. Remember Sergeant John P. Shea. Remember Specialist Dennis Foolin. Remember Sergeant Glenn R. Allison. Thank you. And remember,